Win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
Well, it's interesting because I haven't actually been told specifically what I've done, which has resulted in me being removed from my committee position, which was head of daytime. I started a podcast in September in which I interviewed Charlie Bentley-Astor, who's a detransitioner. I then also interviewed Graham Linehan and I wrote an article for his Substack. And shortly after that, I was told that I had been suspended and the university union started an investigation into me, and that very quickly became apparent to me that it was an interrogation of my gender-critical views rather than any sort of misconduct that I had been alleged to.
Right. And Graham Linehan has been outspoken on issues relating to transgender ism, whatever you want to call it, gender ideology. And so perhaps just by having associated yourself with him as a controversial figure, that was why the investigation happened, you suspect?
Yes, and already it's quite clear that guilt by association is a crime that you can commit within university societies. I actually purchased my free speech union membership way before this all happened, when a friend helped me edit the episode with Charlie, and he got in trouble with a separate society who told him that he must disassociate himself from me, and if he didn't, further measures would be taken. So at that point, I thought, wow, I better put some damage control in place and purchase my membership in case anything happens to me.
So this decision is made by the student union, right? Is that made up of fellow students? Or who's making this call?
Well, that's actually part of my appeal. So the process has been completely improper. They haven't followed their own guidelines. There are two different guidelines as to whether a complaint is dealt with the society itself, so Leeds Student Radio, or the union, and it's basically been a mishmash of both. So it's been an improper procedure, but it is, as far as I'm aware, it's the student union who's decided to remove me.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Hello, it's 11 o'clock, which means it's time for tomorrow's newspapers tonight. Join us over the next hour to find out what Britain already thinks of 2025, why Donald Trump is going into battle for TikTok, and would your dog prefer right-wing dog food? I'm Stephen Allen, and tonight I've got comedians Josh Howie and Nick Dixon taking you through Sunday's top stories. This is Headliners. But before tomorrow's news, let's go to tonight's headlines with Sam Francis.
Very good evening from the newsroom. The top story tonight, well, Russia's President Vladimir Putin has apologised to Azerbaijan for a Christmas Day plane crash that killed, sadly, 38 people, but he stopped short of admitting that Russia was to blame. The aircraft, reportedly hit by shrapnel from Russian air defence systems, crash-landed in Kazakhstan after being forced to divert from Chechnya. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has also accused Moscow of spreading disinformation, saying the damage did resemble a missile strike. US officials have also said Russia is responsible, while Azerbaijan believes the crash was caused by external interference. Investigations are now underway, with various teams examining the crash site. Nigel Farage says that Elon Musk is an absolute hero to young voters and claims he'll help Reform UK to win them over. In an interview with The Telegraph, the Reform UK leader hinted that Mr Musk could make a reasonable-sized donation, insisting it would be legal and above board. It comes as Farage has demanded an apology from Kemi Badenoch after she accused Reform of faking membership numbers. The Tory leader says Reform's online tally, overtaking registered Tory members, she says smells of fakery. Farage, though, has denied those claims, calling them baseless. Heavy fog has continued to cause delays and cancellations at some of the UK's busiest airports today. The majority of flights at Gatwick and Stansted were affected this afternoon, and delays are predicted late into tonight. A number of other delays were also reported at Manchester and Birmingham airports, with dozens of flights delayed at Heathrow. Well, the knock-on effects from Friday's delays also meant planes and pilots were out of position today, leaving some passengers stranded. Earlier, independent travel correspondent Simon Calder told us people need to check before they travel.
We saw over 150 cancellations yesterday, 48 from Gatwick, to and from Gatwick, 42 at London City Airport, 40 at London Heathrow, plus some at Manchester, Luton and other airports. And on top of that, I'm afraid Saturday hasn't begun brilliantly. British Airways has cancelled 18 flights so far to and from Heathrow, another 4 at Gatwick, and there's cancellations also at London City. So if you are flying today, good luck.
Simon Calder there speaking to us earlier. Well, boost growth or get out of the way. That is the message from Sir Keir Starmer to UK regulators. The Prime Minister, the Chancellor and Business Secretary have all asked watchdogs, including Ofgem and Ofwat, to propose pro-growth reforms by mid-January. It follows figures that show the UK economy flatlined between July and September. Labour, though, says it is pulling every lever to deliver the highest sustained economic growth in the G7. The Conservatives blame the government's policies for stalling progress. GB News can reveal today that 1,300 migrants have now crossed the English Channel since Christmas Day, as hundreds more crossed today. It comes as the Home Office confirmed 305 people arrived yesterday in 5 small boats. Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philp has blamed Sir Keir Starmer for scrapping Conservative measures like the Rwanda plan, saying that Labour's approach is an insult to the British people. The Prime Minister, though, has promised to smash the gangs, but that comes as more than 22,000 people have so far arrived since he took office, up 25% on last year. Those are the latest headlines for now. I'll be back with you in an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello and welcome to Headliners, your first look at tomorrow's top stories with 3 comedians. Before we dive in, let's have a look at tomorrow's front pages. We can start with the Mail on Sunday. Kemi's fury at TV chiefs favouring Farage. More on that later, I imagine. Sunday Express, UK's £4 million pledge to find Putin's cruel war criminals. The Observer, patients at risk as NHS urgent repair costs triple in decade. The Sunday Telegraph has families face £8,000 New Year raid. The Sun on Sunday, apprentice stars in Hotel Romp. Could be about Donald Trump, maybe we'll find out more. And Daily Star Sunday goes with rise of killer robot fridges. All right, Josh, let's start with the Mail on Sunday. I mean, before we get into the meat of it, it's a good joke that Cruz Beckham does, isn't it?
Yeah, Jesus was a Nepo baby, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
It's a bad day to do that joke because the story next to it is so big it's going to take...
I don't know why he's been mocked.
Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough.
Nailed it. Nice.
Good for you, mate.
Shouldn't say nailed it if talking about Jesus.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, sorry, I do apologise. Move on.
Kemi's fury as TV chiefs favouring Nigel Farage. And this is... It's like we're in the news.
Gulp.
Again, our boss is in the news, so we have to be obviously very careful what we say here. And I just want to say that I side with our boss.
Very brave.
Strangely.
So brave.
I like Kemi Badenoch, but supposedly she met up with our CEO before Christmas and said, oh, you're giving Nigel Farage a lot of airtime, but that's because Nigel Farage works here. That might have something to do with it. And also it might be that he's actually really good at stunts and things, you know, like for example, putting the numbers up onto Tory HQ, things like that. They're clever like that.
You mean politics?
Politics? Oh, yeah.
It's not even just politics. I mean, there is a level of intelligence about the way they play the system. Like when the Prince Andrew spy, H6, we ended up talking about reform because it was Richard Tyson said he might be using parliamentary privilege to name him, right? So this is a story that is so far away from politics, and yet they get themselves on the front page.
The 2 guys in Manchester.
It's clever. Yeah, exactly. Get a court case which is putting you on the front page again.
I think it's I think Kemi, is being a bit harsh. I mean, Nigel Farage on his own show may be a touch biased towards Nigel Farage. It's possible. I'm going to allow that possibility.
He's not self-hating like us, is he?
Right. I'm a fair man, but I don't think there's a particular bias against Kemi. I happen to favour Jenrick over Kemi, but if Farage does something I don't agree with, I'll say that as well. And actually, one of the strongest criticism against Farage recently came from a GB News US interview from Stephen Edgington, and Farage got quite a lot of blowback off that interview for stuff he said about immigration policy. So I don't think it's the case. Lots of people have been very pro-Kemi. Andrew Doyle was very pro-Kemi. So I've been critical of it, but I think people just give their opinion. Yeah. I don't think there's an anti-Kemi conspiracy.
No, I know. I'm pro-Kemi, but she made a mistake here, it seems like.
Which mistake? Coming for GB News?
No, the two mistakes are to jump into this thing accusing them. Obviously, someone said to her this information this basically for anybody who's not up with the story. Yeah. The Reform have got now over about 150,000. That's another part of the story, is because this has become such a big story, they've got an extra 20,000 people over the last few days, members, and they put their little clicker up in a projection on the Tory HQ, and then because it happened in like the middle of Christmas Day, there was not very much news on Christmas Day, so suddenly that becomes the big story. And she said, no, it's all fake because the clicker was too automatic. But actually, it turns out it wasn't, most likely. And Nigel Farage just said, well, no, you can come and look at our numbers. And and the second part of the story is that she hasn't then apologised. Yeah. That's the other part.
So they've revealed the code behind the ticker to, I think, the Telegraph, Sky News. I'm just sat here like a spare wheel going, anyone else, another news channel might want to see the code? Should have brought it in with you? Do you know, there's another criticism. But do you not think that what Kemi did wrong, she's not playing politics very well at all. It's fake. You've gone all in then, and then he'll say, well, sue us or we'll sue you. Whereas Farage would have played it more clever with questions like, well, I'm not saying it's fake, but why is it going up in the middle of the night? He'd have done it like that. Just questions that he then says, well, I'm not saying it's fake.
Yeah, I want you to go into it because it's on the Telegraph in the next story. Do you want to do it there?
Let's go, move on.
Let's do it.
Yeah, well, so Telegraph has that. It has Musk slaps fake label on Badenoch's online post as one of their stories. Now, this is quite misleading because Musk doesn't really do this. Actually, a guy called Lee Harris did it. He put a community note up, and then that's rated by the group of people who rate these things. And it's meant to take a sort of independent... People of different... If enough people of different views agree with it, that's how the community notes are rated. So it's a bit weird to say Musk slaps fake label, but what happened is there was a community note put on it. So it's not gone very well for Kemi in that regard. Anything else you want to say on that one?
Well, I just think it's a bit silly to argue about this, whether it's 1,000 more or less, and getting bogged down in these little details. The fact is, on the positive side, for Reform, if you're going to say, they're going to go, yeah, we got like an engaged membership and our numbers have gone up and we beat the Tories. On the negative side of that, if you want to do some criticism, let's go some criticism of that. What does that membership mean? Is it actually a membership at all? Because I believe it's like you're signing up to a private company. It's not membership like traditional membership parties where you might have things like a vote in the leader, things like that. So there we go. That's some criticism of Reform, isn't it? We've done our job.
You'd have to be really certain you were right, and it seems like she probably wasn't, unless she comes back with like other data and is like, no, look at my data. But it seems like a big mistake. Yeah. Big mistake. It's a mistake.
For legal reasons, it says here a GB News spokesman. We've got a spokesman. Said that a meeting took place without any acrimony and was very constructive.
OK. Who was the GB News spokesman?
I don't know.
Who was he?
I can't...
Who's not acrimonious around here? Who did they find?
All I can say is the meeting went well, guys. That's all I'm saying.
Because, sorry, I want to say one more thing on the story, in that the reason why it looked like it might be suspicious was because 29 people signed up between 3 a.m. and 4 a.m. Yeah. And what they don't understand is this is what the kids are doing nowadays. They're hooking up with their mates, it's 3 in the morning, and they drop the price, Reform dropped the price to a tenner. People are sitting down, they're smoking, they're like... You know, let's join that Reform, you know, and that's what happened.
What accent was that again?
That's the way that young people
textbook
speak.
Reform voter.
Textbook Reform voter. I'm sure that's exactly how it happened.
Yeah, not angry insomniacs at all.
It's it's what all the kids are doing on TikTok.
Is it? All right. Yeah. Josh, on to the next one. What's the front page of The Observer?
Oh, The Observer, yes. Although there is something on Telegraph, sorry, a bit more about families face 8,000 £1,000 New Year tax rate. So this is middle-class families, and but the way they're talking about middle-class families is they're going, well, you know, they're going to have to pay another this many thousand to their private school, and I'm going, really? So that sounds more posh than middle.
Top 7%, isn't it? People going to private schools.
Private schools, yes. But essentially, we're all paying a lot of tax, and even people who aren't middle class.
It's based on 2 adults with a salary of 55 grand each.
Yeah.
Can't be many of them left in this country, can You've got a stable family and you're making that much money? Got to be about 10 of them.
And there's also and there's a pill possibly coming to the NHS for Alzheimer's, which is a really big deal because I'm going to get that for sure. All my family got it.
And it was developed in Aberdeen.
Yeah.
Shout out Aberdeen.
Yeah.
No, same for me with both my parents. I mean, everyone who's older than me in the family's basically had Alzheimer's, so I'm just fingers crossed I've been born at the right time for these drugs to come in.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it does feel like the train's coming down.
No, it's really good because there's already
become a test subject.
Well, it's just there are already a couple of drugs that have been shown to work that have been turned down by the NHS. So this is a big deal, and I'm hopeful. Yeah. Anyway, other news: first pill to slow Alzheimer's could be coming to the NHS. I had to do it. It's the oldest joke in the.
It's classics at Christmas.
Old school. All right, Observer: patients at risk as NHS urgent repair costs will triple in a decade. This is the bills, basically urgent repairs to hospitals. They're getting behind on them, and the more they get behind, the more appointments get put off. But on top of that, the more it's going to cost them to do the fixing when they finally get around to it. So that's obviously not great.
Yeah. I was in the hospital just before Christmas. I had an X-ray of my face. My face doesn't quite fit itself, apparently.
Looks good to me.
Yeah, I think it looks all right.
I think it looks better.
The jaw is misaligned, apparently.
Okay.
So,
what have you been doing?
Well, just chewing on one side. But they're trying to gnaw away at the restraints. Look at your face. I've got to have an X-ray.
It wasn't a sexual reference.
No. I'm just fascinated. Go on. I want to know more about your face, Stephen. So does the nation.
Yeah, it looks all right, doesn't it? And that's all you need from a face. That's what I'm saying. But their hospitals just look like they were built in the 70s and not improved since.
Yeah, that's what it is, yeah.
They're running Windows XP and rubbish like that, aren't they?
You're saying our NHS isn't the envy of the world, Steve? That's what it sounds like to me. How dare
I love how it's the computer system that's really got your go. I was standing there and I was looking at how she was typing it in. I was like, that's XP.
Are you not more angry about the incinerator? Look, anger at plans for 41 dirty incinerators. Dirty, which is perfect because it sounds like an insult, and it is, because they're saying, well, you don't want them because they're dirty in all senses.
I'm going to take your rubbish, I'm going to burn it. I'm going to smoke it up and create power.
It's not the kind of dirty I normally Google for, so I've not really read the details on that story. On to the next one. What's the next front page?
Fine. It's the Sunday Times. Oh, there's so many stories there. I don't know which one to start with. How about this one? It's more interesting. Farage could take 67 seats from Labour, suggests polls. So More in Common have done a poll. Puts reform... Not that we're biased, of course. Kemi could get some seats as well. But actually, it does put Conservatives on 222, Labour on 228, so we've got that to look forward to. Lib Dems, 58. Ed Davey, sort of theme park strategy not paying off in this poll, and SNP at 37. So this is just a poll, of course, but Reform do very well in this theoretical poll.
Yes, it is interesting to see that also that they're focusing on that part of like the seats that are taken away from Labour. Of course, the conversation at the moment, certainly today, is Tories, Reform, but they do also have an impact on Labour as well.
Don't you think, I mean, it's so far out that who knows what the playing field will be like when we get to another election, but surely it's a case of let Labour implode and then take on the Tories. If you were Reform, and I'm not...
Stop talking about Reform!
Kemi's great.
Yeah, you love Kemi.
I love Kemi. I heart Kemi is what I've got tattooed. But that would be the strategy, wouldn't it? Because Labour, the way things are going, they're tanking themselves in the poll. So you want to attack the Tories right now. That's how you win.
I mean, but this is the thing about polls, isn't it? But the election's 4.5 years away. Potentially. So this is all could this be part of his plan, Labour's plan, and then we have the upswing in a couple of years? We'll see. But at the moment, they've not had a great start, obviously.
Yeah. And they've also got, I suppose their main story is middle classes support VAT on private schools, says Phillipson. So Bridget Phillipson, very objective on this policy. And she says people love it. Middle class parents have largely been priced out of private schools, and that's why there's such support for our policy. So she thinks...
With providing any evidence for that particular theory?
She's as biased as Nigel Farage being pro-Nigel Farage. How dare they?
Yeah.
I feel like I'm going to get in trouble.
Do you want to do the Assad story? Because there's also dump files show families spying on each other in Assad's surveillance state. And people were even, there was all sorts of families were spying on each other, including children. People were going to prison. It sounds like Starmer's UK. It's just horrific stuff. Sorry, I had to say that.
You've had a fun Christmas then.
Yeah.
That's what I'm taking from that story. And anything a bit lighter if we had...
Daily Star. Rise of the killer robot fridges. And this is just a classic AI coming in to... make our food cold when we want it.
It's not that classic, is it? Because, like, the Terminator wasn't a fridge. Famously was
Well,
a
I'm
killbot.
surprised they haven't actually done a kind of killer fridge type movie.
Yeah.
Or your appliances kind of coming against, an update on Disney, with Mickey when he was
Fantasia.
going, and all that, but do it with these killer appliances.
Yeah.
Internet thing. I've not even been given a star, which is classic anti-Nick sentiment that's rife at this channel. It's a haven for anti-Nick.
Can we
You're a generic guy. Just get on board with a chemi.
Let's speak to the GB News spokesman.
I think so.
Or woman. Could be a woman here. Lots of women work here as well.
It's not, though, is it?
Find out.
To be fair. Coming up, that's all because the front pages are sorted. On the way, what we all think of 2025, Elon goes anti-MAGA, and Trump called William handsome, and now he's invited to stay over. You've pulled, mate. This is Headliners, only on GB News.
You need to get a star.
I thought we weren't doing this.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
Following the summer riots and the resurgence of far-right ideologies, the former Education Secretary told peers that reinforcing shared values is now more crucial than ever.
So we're asking this morning, should we teach British values or would it be a step backward?
Or how do you even start? To debate this now, we're joined by the Campaign for Real Education chairman, Chris McGovern, and political commentator Matthew Stadland.
Well, I think these days, particularly in schools, it's quite fashionable to look at the negative sides of Britain's identity, particularly British history. Personally, I think I'm very proud of being British, and I think we need to be proud of our country like most other countries around the world are.
As Chris says, Matthew, lots of other countries do it. Heck, you only have to look at the United States, don't you, to see how sort of patriotic they are. Is there anything wrong in trying to instil a bit of that amongst our youth?
I'm just worried it sounds a little bit communist, Stephen, being told what it is to be British. I've got my own personal but very vague views of what British values might be: inclusivity, patience, being able to queue, decency, respect for democracy and the rule of law. But I mean, very many people will have different sets of values. Some people are racist. So are British values racist? You talked about the far right. I think we all know what the far right is. It's sort of violent, xenophobic racism. But if you have, say, 3-4 million people in this country who might describe themselves as racist or far right, and they're British, or as British as you lot and as I am, does that mean those values get taught in schools? My worry is it's a little bit communist.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners. I'm Stephen Allen, still joined by Josh Howie and Nick Dixon. You can get involved by going to gbnews.com/yoursay. We've got one that comes from Andy that says, Badenoch, wah, sob, what a toddler. And for balance, I'll just find one that's pro-Kemi. There's going to be one down here somewhere. Nick, to the Sun, and the story of a royal prince and American billionaire, but this one doesn't end up in a Woking Pizza Express.
Great point, Steve. It's Trump to make history with second state visit to UK hosted by King Charles after love-in with Handsome Wills. Not a literal one, I believe.
Well.
And the handsome thing's quite funny, actually, because Trump said some people look better in person. It's a weird compliment. It's like... Am I happy about that? You're saying I look rubbish in all my media appearances. And, you know, it's
would you rather look better on person or
yeah, it's a good question,
camera?
isn't it? I think you'd rather look better in person, but would you rather be told it? I don't know. Actually, for me, probably on camera, because no one ever sees me in person. Yeah. I only live on screen.
You're AI.
So, but just to get to the main point, basically, well, there's not much of a point, really. Trump. The fact is, Trump's coming over again, and he'll be the first ever elected politician to be hosted for a second time by the royal family. So there you go. Obviously, the late Queen, he seemed to get on well with it. He loves the royal family. We need to make the most of this and get our trade deal. But I think it's a good thing because Trump just loves Britain, because his mother loved Britain. He's got the golf courses. He loves the Queen. And he actually gets on with Charles, it seems, despite their ostensible differences on things like the climate, because Trump wants to drill, baby, drill. And I hear that's not Charles's favourite thing.
You know, yeah, he's want to drill babies. It seems there's very little oil available in a baby.
Yeah.
I've looked into it.
Well, question number one is, will there be protests like there were last time?
Sorry, baby oil, just realised. I'm wrong about that. It's literally a type of oil. Sorry.
Which was the big inflatable baby there. So is there going to be protests again?
Yes.
Well, as you know, I went to the protest there. I would not go again. Things have changed.
Keep your job?
Well, I don't know maybe I go reporting this time. Yeah. But there are some interesting things I would like to say about the story. Number one is Benedict Cumberbatch. He also looks better in real life.
Oh, I thought we were just saying random actors. Before the Alzheimer's drug.
And number two is, I think that Prince William, hear me out, should possibly offer his services, intimate services, if it gets us a free trade deal.
Yeah.
And I think in that case, that would win over a lot of Republicans to monarchy, to royalists. I'm throwing out there.
We can get these two nations back together. We could claim a lot of back tax. Imagine the amount they owe us now, and we could just be in charge of America again.
I'll tell you who has the vision and diplomacy to solve this. Kemi Badenoch. She's good.
Thank
Look
you.
out for her.
You got us out of a hole there. Josh, the Sunday Telegraph. Bad news. Brits think 2025 is going to be even worse. Good news. At least we can spot a trend.
Yeah, so, Britons believe 2025 will be worse than 2024 in a blow for Starmer. I don't know how much of a blow it is. Like, all of these polls, anything that really happens, it's immaterial. Nothing is going to get him to not be the Prime Minister for however many years now, for the next 3 or 4 years. But there are two things that are kind of revealed here. First of all, 2/3 of people don't think that Labour are going to sort out the boats crisis or the NHS. Certainly within the next year, and they may be right. But whether these steps will be able to be developed during this year, and we'll see some growth, we'll see. But the main thing is that people are a bit pessimistic about this country, and I think that is maybe one of the biggest mistakes that they have made, coming in, focusing on the black hole and just being very sort of pessimistic, as opposed to coming in like change and hope and Tony Blair and things can only get better and Obama and giving that vibe, because I think people are just down on the country now.
He literally said things will only get worse. I mean, people are concerned about immigration, both kinds, legal and illegal, NHS waiting list, but you've also got low wages. Look at our wages compared to America. You've got high bills, of course, housing problems, censorship, anarcho-tyranny, crimes. You've got prisoners released. You've got low birth rate, general Western decline. Starmer himself being miserable, and as Josh says, offering no vision of hope. You've got World War III looming. So, people are just incredibly miserable. I mean, it's not really rocket science, is it? And Starmer's not offered anything to help us with that. He's made it worse.
All of the things on that list, if you'd have put low birth rate at the end, it would have made sense. Like, yeah, of course no one's going to feel in the mood to get frisky.
Right.
With all that stuff on your mind, of course you can't focus on the job.
No, exactly. Unless you're, Prince William.
Nick, the Sunday Telegraph, and America's visas for highly skilled migrants have been defended by, checks notes, an overachieving South African. Go figure.
Yeah, well, this is massive. So this is Elon Musk threatens war with MAGA Republicans. And if you've missed it, it's all been kicking off on, actually, ironically, Elon Musk's own platform, Twitter, X, for a long time. It's about the H-1B visa. And it's a kind of civil war in the Trump movement. So on the Musk side, he's claiming that we need these visas to bring in the top talent. He calls it the top 0.1% of engineers into America. And he says he's come in this way and he's been in favour of it. And against that is the kind of argument, no, it's about American jobs first. And in fact, these visas don't even work because you have like accountants coming on these visas and all sorts of things. So the system is a scam anyway, is the counter. And philosophically, America is a nation, not a sports team. So Musk has compared it to a sports team, saying we have to compete with China and so on by having the best people in tech, AI, manufacturing, STEM, basically. And the counter is, no, it's about America first. That was the movement. But Trump Musk has arguably hijacked the movement, and you see Steve Bannon has been criticising Musk very strongly on this, and that's almost like the original vision of MAGA, 2016, versus 2024 MAGA, which is this libertarian Musk thing that's very, very different. And just the sort of breaking thing was just this evening in the UK, Trump has offered this comment on it, because the key thing was which side was Trump going to come down on. He's spoken to the New York Post and implied that he likes H-1B visas and all his people in his Mar-a-Lago have them. But some people are saying, hang on, is that even true? He's talking about temporary visas. He's not talking about tech. So we have to wait and see if Trump really meant that, because occasionally he says something that's not completely on message. So this is the question. Which side will Trump and Vance come down on?
Some of his wives have been imports, so surely he's in favour.
Yeah, look, of course, like any of these things, they're open to loopholes and exploitation. And yes, it sounds like this visa isn't designed to bring over accountants. It is meant to be bringing over the. It makes sense if we want to. We'll take all those super brain boxes who are going to create the next Tesla and make a $1 trillion company that will create lots of work and taxes and pay lots of taxes and whatnot. So, but the element that's sort of not being mentioned here is there is a racist element. You're not going to be this on the right. And part of this comes down to like them literally saying on Twitter and these different saying, we don't want any foreigners here. And they're particularly referencing skin colour as well. And he is coming out, and that's what he's saying. He's saying they're hateful, unrepentant racists, which there are on the right. Now, there are people on the right who aren't and just want to make America great again for everybody. But there are some racists on the right, believe it or not. And let's not pretend that those people aren't there. And he is calling them out and saying he's going to go to war with them because that's what they seem to think. Oh, no, let's keep... Basically, then for them, it's like, let's keep America white, essentially, is what they're trying to say. And there is that part of the story.
What's quite amusing about that is Musk himself, and by the way, Musk has been awful on this because whatever you think to the actual argument, his tone, he's basically called Americans stupid repeatedly on Twitter, and it's an extraordinary tone for the richest man in the world to take. It really does feel like punching down, to use that phrase. And it's really tone deaf. And he's not speaking as a politician here. He's speaking as someone who runs factories and needs cheap workers who will come over and won't have the same rights as Americans, will be paid less. You can work them to the bone. And that racist comment's quite funny. He says that Republicans need to kick out hateful, unrepentant racists. And I do think some people will be a bit bored of having had 8 years being called racist by the left. And now Musk come in, immediately calling him racist. I mean, it's an upgrade. The richest man in the world's now calling him racist.
But are you genuinely saying there is no racism on the right? Is that really what you're saying?
The word racism is so overused.
OK, there are people saying we don't want brown people here. That's literally what they're saying.
Well, there's also the Bannon wing against Musk. No, but the Bannon wing, you're framing it as a racial argument. Look at what Bannon's saying. He's saying it's about working-class Americans of all races, black, Latino, white, who are to the Trump base.
But that's Bannon. But
whereas Musk is saying, no, we want high-scale... He just wants a global... He wants this feudal overlord tech thing, which that's the difference. It's a difference in... It's about class.
Well, I mean, Bannon may be saying that, but the point is there are other people who are properly racist, who are saying racist stuff, and he is calling them out.
But that's not the core of people who are annoyed. The core of people who are annoyed are the non-racist, ordinary American base who voted for Trump, who now see this guy come in, who I like on
other issues. We're talking about 65,000 people maximum. It's capped off there. Yeah. So, I mean, it's a tiny number. And if these people, I agree, close the loopholes, fine. But if they want to bring over the best of the best, the brainiest people in the entire world, whatever their country are, whatever the colour of their skin or ethnicity or anything like that, and they're going to come over and make billions for this country, it seems ridiculous to reject them based on their ethnicity.
Do you know what? We haven't had this much falling out on the show since someone tried to make sense near Louis Schaefer. Amazing. Still to come, why is Trump defending TikTok, what Biden regrets, and why your dog is racist. Standard. This is Headliners, only on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. Well, as we see out 2024, the weather certainly turning much more unsettled across the country. As we approach New Year itself, potentially be very windy for some of us. But before we get there, we still have this area of high pressure hanging on across the south, so maintaining the rather murky conditions here. But this cold front will continue to sink its way southwards, introducing something a little bit clearer. But for most of England and Wales, it is going to be another murky night. If you do have any travel plans, do allow some extra time for your journeys. Further north, we have this band of rain across Scotland that will be fairly heavy and persistent in places. And for most of us, it's not going to be a cold night by any means. Temperature's not much lower than about 3 to 5 degrees. So we start Sunday off on a fairly wet note for Scotland, especially for Western Scotland. Some heavy and persistent rain here, accompanied by a fairly keen breeze as well. Maybe a few glimmers of sunshine for Northern Ireland, but especially so for Northern England. Some brightness here from the word go. North Wales also seeing some sunshine, but further south across the rest of England and Wales, it's going to be another fairly murky start to the day with, again, some mist and fog around. But I'm hopeful as we go through the course of Sunday that will begin to lift and break and more of us seeing some brighter skies. But unfortunately for Scotland, that rain continuing to pile in and starting to turn a little bit colder across the very far north. So some of that rain could well turn to snow, especially across the high ground. But with more in the way of brightness further south, feeling a little bit less cold, could see highs reaching 10 to 11 degrees. Then looking ahead to Monday, further rain and also some snow for Scotland. Warnings are in force here, so some very tricky conditions as we go through the course of the day. A little bit quieter further south with some brightness, but as we approach the all-important New Year period, all of us seeing some unsettled weather, but especially so across the north where it could turn very windy for a time.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there short and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners. You can get involved. Go to gbnews.com/your says. We've got a comment each, actually. Andy says, I'm with Nick, so there's some nice support there. Girl Biker says, is it me or has the top of Josh's head got jaundice? Harsh. And then John says to me, since last night, Steve looks like he's been eating nachos and he's gone really orange around the mouth. Next week, you'll look like that terrorist who's suing that pub and you'll have an orange beard. Cheers. Thanks for that. Let's just do a recap of the front pages. The Mail on Sunday has Kemi's fury at TV chiefs favouring Farage. Who would do such a thing? Sunday Express, UK's £4 million pledge to find Putin's war criminals. The Observer, patients at risk as NHS urgent repair costs triple in decade. Sunday Telegraph, families face £8,000 New Year raid. Sun on Sunday, Apprentice stars in Hotel Romp. And the Daily Star Sunday, rise of the killer robot fridges. Nick, the Observer, Biden thinks he could have beaten Trump. I don't want to be ageist, but he's so frail he looks like he could be beaten by a Trump.
Nice. It's Biden reportedly regrets ending re-election campaign and says he'd have defeated Trump. Oh, hindsight. Sweet hindsight. Yes, he's arguing he'd have beaten Trump, and he also said that it was a mistake to choose Merrick Garland as Attorney General because he didn't prosecute Trump early enough for January 6th. So, yeah, I mean, it's Biden's claim. It's absurd. I mean, Trump won a crushing victory. The Senate, the House, the popular vote. He wouldn't have won. I do believe, personally, he'd have done better than Harris. But there's also the Harris camp who say, no, the problem was you waiting too long before withdrawing, which is also a valid argument. But I feel that it was just a bad scene. No Democrat wanted to get involved. No, it's Hillary didn't get involved, and Michelle Obama didn't get that involved, and Gavin Newsom. I just think they all knew, let's just give it to Kamala, and she'll lose. I just think they knew it was a loser either way, and it was just Trump's time.
Yeah, the way he presented himself during the 2020 election was as this kind of holding a holdover president. He would like hand up. The fact that he didn't do what he said that he would do is a betrayal of the Democrats. They should be incredibly angry with him. He left it way too late, left it in a position that really she was the only alternative at that point. She was rubbish, and but then she was awake, so that was the advantage of her. So
not sober, but awake. Yeah. But from his perspective, they probably mistreated him. You could see he felt mistreated towards the end. That's how you felt, because he was wearing MAGA caps and stuff like that. So they probably, and Nancy Pelosi saying you can go the easy way or the hard way, allegedly. Not great.
Yeah. I mean, you say he left it too late. Give him a break. He's going to be forgetful. Did you see the guy? Yeah. He's lucky if he's wearing trousers, let alone remembering to line up a next
replacement.
Candidate. Yeah.
No, and you know what? And the Democrats themselves should be shamed, because they should have pushed them earlier, and they were just too weak. So
to the Sunday Mirror.
And on top of that, he, Trump was selling a better vision, so he deserved to get in.
Yeah. Well, no wonder he was wearing the hat then. Josh, Sunday Mirror, a story about TikTok. For our older viewers, I should explain that's an app and not what you say to a childless 39-year-old woman.
Yeah. Donald Trump in major TikTok ban move as he makes special requests of the Supreme Court. So this was something that was put through. Basically, TikTok was to be banned, even though TikTok then have sort of taken it up through the court system up to the Supreme Court to fight it.
Yeah.
Because saying that, and the argument was at the time that, and still is, that China owns part of it. And are they going to be using that data, particularly the data about the young? Are they taking that information back to China? And on top of that, it's about the cultural influence that it has, because as Leo Kearse, our colleague, points out many times, rightly so, Chinese TikTok is not the same as Western TikTok. Chinese TikTok is about creating citizens who are useful and read books and do things like that, and here it's about dancing. So Trump is basically, he's obviously about to get into power, and he's saying, and the dates coincide just before he does, and he says to the Supreme Court, actually, hold off. But the way that he says hold off, the way that the person released this information to the court is the best part of it, because it's just saying, it's saying consistent with his commanding presence in this area, and that he is, President Trump alone possesses the consummate deal-making expertise. So someone's just written a load of really good bump about Trump to the Supreme Court. Yeah, exactly.
I wonder if there's a few things going on. One, Trump does well on TikTok. So you've got all the young people doing the dance, right? So it does well for him, so you might want to keep it. He's probably spoken to Barron. He's like, we love Barron. I asked Barron. He was always asking Barron about the young people. They love TikTok. So that's probably part of it. Also, a chance to just bring money to the US or keep money in the US with a Trump-esque deal, as you've suggested. But also, did the tech bros convince him? He's got people like Musk and Vivek being very influential now, as discussed in the earlier story.
But they're the competitors, though, isn't it, TikTok?
But don't they aren't tech bros just like big on tech in general? I mean, they're competitors to X, yeah, that's true. But those type of people, just want them in the country.
Yeah, and restrictions like...
They're less hawkish on it, whereas they're less hawkish on China, whereas Bannon's group is very anti-China, or the CCP anyway, and the other groups, more sort of libertarian-type people, are like, let's bring in all the technology.
Yeah, and also restriction on social media might start with TikTok, but then you worry which other network
and if he's Mr. Free Speech now.
Yeah.
But he did try to get it banned during his first presidency.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, when they say banned, I understand why it's written like that in the headline, but it actually was just sell off the American arm so that there is no corporate line that goes from TikTok to the Chinese government that can demand information. You sever that, and that did make sense.
It does make sense.
Yeah, but Trump's against it now.
We'll see.
Oh, well.
See if he makes a deal with his big hands.
The Observer, Nick, and is it true that you go anti-woke, you go anti-broke, if that makes such a thing?
It is correct, Steve. It's anti-woke dog food and pro-America lipstick. US sees rise in right-wing stores. And it mentions a couple of particular brands, Mammoth Nation and Public Square. And it's all about brands that are selling general products, but the company aligns with the values of MAGA rather than the values of woke. And, of course, we're bound to see more of this. I'm surprised there hasn't been more. There's Daily Wire we've seen making their own razors and their own chocolate. And because the problem is, in the current regime we have, there's no morally neutral institutions. So you have these companies like Bud Light, and they take a weird stance with this Dylan Mulvaney thing. And your phone company's got a view on your politics. So, of course, there's got to be a backlash of companies going the other way. What would be ideal is to be apolitical in theory, you'd make the most money. But companies can't do that now. They're staffed by woke people who have to prove their woke credentials and get their next job at some other woke company. So there's all these perverse incentives to be woke, even though customers don't like it and shareholders don't necessarily like it. But so now this backlash is inevitable. The question is, when does it flip and MAGA become the new mainstream so that your phone company is suddenly MAGA? But at the moment, it's more of it's splintering into these two groups.
Yeah. So a lovely bit I think is interesting in there. I hadn't occurred to me before that the reason they do it, or one of the reasons they do it, it's so much easier to say, oh, we agree with you, than to sell the properties of your product. You don't have to mention, you don't have to address any flaws. You go, oh, no, we're like you, buy this thing.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. And actually, you can be an inferior product, but then you can feel like, oh, well, they're what I'm about as well. We have the same values. I don't know if these right-wing places at Public Square, I don't know if they sell contraceptives. I'd be curious to see where their cut-off point is.
It's nice to see them branching out, because before that, if you look at a right-wing podcast, it's always just dry food and guns. Like, you'll eat this food for years when it all kicks off in your basement. It's like, guys, we need some other things to sell.
And now they've got chocolate as well. But it's exactly as Nick says, this idea that it's polarised is ridiculous. The idea that you have to be woke or right-wing. Just get on with selling your goods.
Yeah.
So ridiculous. Yeah. They're saying it's increasing. It's really hard to make these two groups happy. Just make a good product and sell it based on that.
But if you do want to survive and you want to buy Stephen Allen's patented bone broth, it is available. Still to come.
Bone broth.
Bone broth.
Oh, bone
Alex
broth.
Jones, you know, the live straw, the bone broth. He makes broth from bones for men. What's wrong with Crocodile Dundee? That's coming up next. And why are Easter egg hunts getting too easy? This is Headliners, only on GB News. Bone broth.
Bone broth.
You're looking happy.
Well, the forecast looks good.
So you've sorted the travel insurance then?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello there, welcome to your latest winter sun forecast. Well, as we see out 2024, it's going to remain fairly unsettled for parts of Cyprus and Greece. This area of cloud and rain continues to linger here. But for much of Italy, Spain and Portugal, a fairly quiet couple of days with some late winter sunshine here. A few showers for Madeira, maybe just creeping into Canaries. But as we approach New Year's Day itself, it should be fairly fine and dry across the Canaries.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Well, let's speak now to Charlie Mullins, who's the founder of Pimlico Plumbers, and entrepreneur Oliver Hodgson. Really good to see you both this morning. Charlie, let's start with you. Has working from home and the culture surrounding working from home killed work experience, do you think?
Undoubtedly. Many companies now are not getting youngsters in for the work experience because of the fact they don't have the staff in. So if they're only in 2 days a week, they're not going to get in the youngsters. They've got no one to train them. So it's killed it totally. And if you think it's bad now, probably 4 or 5 years from now, it'll be absolutely ridiculous. This working from home, I said from day one, is going to kill youngsters' futures, youngsters' careers, and getting people into the workplace. So now the damage is showing through, unfortunately. COVID finished a couple of years ago. The working from home should have stopped and get people back into the workplace.
I mean, Oliver, you have to say it's difficult to see how people in a work-from-home environment can do any sort of on-the-job training at all.
It's really interesting, the work experience piece, actually, because we run an internship program in the summer here. We had 5 people in the office in person and they really thrived, but we did have a couple of people who joined remotely because of their own reasons, right, and where they were. I think it's a bit more nuanced than that as well, because I've got clients who have completely remote teams. Now, I don't. I have an office and our team are based in here, but our clients who do, they're able to offer work experience opportunities digitally with fantastic technology to people across the world, right? So they have people in their team who are working from all sorts of different continents, which is obviously fantastic. But I agree with Charlie, right? You cannot knock in-person engagement. You cannot knock being in the office.
GB News, the People's Channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners. You can get involved. Go to gbnews.com/yoursay. And Reform UK Chris says, Kemi called. She said your bone broth TM is fraudulent. I have given the recipe to Sky and to The Telegraph. Not to GB News, though, for some reason. Still weird, isn't it? Josh, The Independent, and Easter gets earlier every year. I mean, how can you tell? Who knows when Easter's meant to happen anyway?
Yeah, well, I'm not up on my Easter stuff. I know it involves eggs and chocolate. And confusion as Easter eggs hit the shop shelves before New Year's Eve, even some on Christmas Eve, which is a very which came first, the chicken or the egg situation.
Turkey, we have.
Turkey, yeah. Now, I can understand why people are concerned about this, because it could be that they were just really a rubbish supermarket and they were super late. That could be the other element, you know, trying to get rid of those Easter eggs. But I'm happy for two reasons. Number one is Cadbury's cream eggs are my favourite. I love them. I'm always happy when they come out. And that's it. Actually, that was
good argument.
There's no other. But, yeah, it is slightly ridiculous. Yeah. It is like Christmas is getting earlier every year, and then Easter, and now it's just going to go into a new cycle. What do you think?
Yeah, well, I don't have any very strong views on it. I mean, as you say, it's slightly ridiculous.
What do you think, Nick? Save me.
I mean, I have strong views that this is about we should focus more on the resurrection of Jesus than the early emergence of eggs.
But to be fair, though, the Cadbury's cream egg is a great snack. And my favourite thing that ever happened is when they went from 6 in a box to 5 in a box, because 5 is a prime number, so, like 6, you'd have to share it if you had 2 people there or 3 people there. The only way you have to share a box of 5 is if you've got 4 friends, and I do not have 4 friends.
Yeah, but it's a dozen eggs, isn't it? It's half a dozen eggs.
Yeah, but it's awkward if you turn up and there are other people, why don't you have 2?
I don't see how
you'd have some weird mathsy autistic take on it.
They should only be boxes, boxes in prime numbers. That's not autistic.
As you give yourself diabetes, you're going to blame your diabetes on your...
prime diabetes, which is the best one.
And for the tweeting people, I love autistic people, that was a joke. Just, I get the tweets.
You do get
I get the tweets.
I'm really looking forward to seeing my tweets.
You should see yours say.
They love me on your say.
They're not loving my hue, apparently. The Sunday Express. Could Trump end the conspiracy about JFK? I mean, how could a bullet travel like that, considering that the Earth is flat?
Great point, Steve. Great point. And dark secret that could make Donald Trump regret key pledge is the headline. Yeah, and Trump basically said he'll release the files, the Kennedy files, you know, and I thought that was a great thing to say, but be careful, because people keep shooting at you already, and for some of the campaign, he was stood next to a Kennedy. Do you know what I mean? It's like, whose dad was, of course, killed as well. It's like...
Allegedly?
Allegedly. Well, he certainly was murdered. That was definitely happened.
I don't know, but allegedly.
RFK's... Bobby, he was killed. His question is who is the only allegedly part.
That's what Oliver Stone says. I don't know if I agree with that.
The guy works down the local
You're saying
museum.
he's still alive somehow.
I don't know.
Bobby Kennedy is alive would be a bigger conspiracy. The point is...
I'm a conspiracy liver. I'm a liver.
Fair enough. Yeah, I agree with Flat Earth. I'm like Steve, but the point is, would you say it before the election? I'd say I'd sort of wait till I was in. I'd wait till I was like maybe nearly dead anyway. Just, here's all the files, you know what I mean? Because I'd be worried.
Don't teach people to be better assassins when you are being shot at.
I also want the UFO files. Release it all. We want Area 51. Get in there. Find out. I'm surprised he didn't do it last time. He revealed some files last time, but there's still like 3,000 that aren't. The big thing that'll probably come out is that the CIA knew about Lee Harvey Oswald. And they basically, because at the time they're like, who is this person?
Who Harvey Oswald?
That's probably the big reveal, not that it was like a person on a grassy knoll or whatever.
No.
Yeah. Sorry.
Oh well. Josh, Mail on Sunday, is Crocodile Dundee too offensive? I mean, it already sounds anti-Scottish.
Yeah, I never thought about that, yeah. Oh, snap, how Channel 5 ripped 80s classic Crocodile Dundee to shreds so it could air it pre-Watershed, with viewers calling, literally 2 viewers, calling it the rehash a bloody woke crap. Is that, am I allowed to say that? That was an Australian accent.
Oh, right, no, you sound like one of those young people you did earlier.
Oh, well, there we go. So, yeah, they cut about 10% off. They cut the best bits out, which are... First of all, that ain't a knife, this is a knife. Yeah. That ain't a knife, this is a knife. Yeah. They did the thing about the what tribe are you from, mate? I'm from the Harlem, whatever. And they cut where they go, he thinks it's a transvestite, or yeah, and he goes, Sheila, and then he does it again. So you got the great callback later on when it's the woman from Golden Girls.
Yeah, an Australian film without violence or racism. What is the point, guy? What are you watching for? Or, yeah, it's mad. But they always used to do it, not to defend them, but TV has always edited films weirdly. You'd watch any movie you know, and then you watch on TV going, where's it all gone? Even back pre-woke.
Yeah, but now
like
it's
even
worse. Yeah, but like
now it's way worse.
They edit swear words and stuff, which is fair enough.
Yippee-yi-yay, mother fool.
Yeah,
I remember watching that on
That's
ITV.
all fine, but to cut out these big moments in the film is ridiculous.
Yeah,
insane.
It's disgusting.
Absolute shame, isn't it?
Sickening.
I
guess I'm trying to top you both.
Oh my God.
In terms of getting rid of the woke storylines, though, of Crocodile Dundee, why don't they should just they could reshoot it these days? They've done, they do that with all this stuff, don't they? Make it a spoon instead of.
Yeah, that ain't a spoon. This is a spoon.
Grabs the package and goes, "Well done. I respect your work."
Oh, very nice.
Yeah,
that's
how I do it.
That's very good.
That will be available on my YouTube channel. If you go there, you can buy an awful lot of bone broth. That's what's going on. Well, the show is nearly over, so let's take another quick look at Sunday's front pages. We can start with the Mail on Sunday. Kemi's fury at TV chiefs favouring Farage. There'll be more in the inbox as soon as we get off air.
Sorry,
Kemi! Sunday Express, UK's £4 million pledge to find Putin's cruel war criminals. The Observer says patients at risk as NHS urgent repair costs triple in decade. The Sunday Telegraph, families face £8,000 New Year raid. Oh, Merry Christmas. And the Sun on Sunday, Apprentice stars in Hotel Romp. And judging by the picture, that's not Donald Trump, who would have been an Apprentice star. The Daily Star Sunday, rise of the killer robot fridges. That's your front pages sorted. Thank you for my guest tonight. We'll be back tomorrow at 11 with some other people who'll be sat here doing roughly the same job. If you're watching at 5, stay tuned for breakfast. If you're watching earlier, stay tuned for longer for breakfast. And have a good one.
Bye, Kemi.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. Well, as we see out 2024, the weather certainly turning much more unsettled across the country. As we approach New Year itself, could potentially be very windy for some of us. But before we get there, we still